Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared, and this is the Urban EDC Supply NESSIE. Now, this is an exclusive to Urban EDC Supply. They did send this to me. I'm going to link everything I can down in the description for you guys, just in case if you guys want to get this or check anything else out they have. Shout out to Urban EDC Supply. Now, this is pretty unique, and that is one thing I like. It is very premium. That is one thing. It is very, very well made. And the designers kind of took the NESSIE, which is, like a folding slip joint version of the NESSIE, and kukri, and kind of, or the inspiration of the kukri, and designed this somewhat of a fighting style folding knife that's also good for EDC, which I think is awesome. That's very cool, and we're going to get into all that stuff. So the blade, it is a big bellied spear point style blade, kind of a modified spear pointish blade, which, with poking, it is definitely going to open things up very wide, and it has this big forward belly, and you can kind of see the kukri look without the recurve here. It does have a forward heavy big belly blade, so for slashing it will definitely open things up as well, but also could work great for trapping material, in slicing purposes. So it's going to be also great for slicing, and because of the way the tip kind of teardrops down, it should also work pretty good for utility cuts as well. Now, I'm not sure who the OEM is. I hear it is classified information, level 6 clearance type information, and I'm only a level 5 clearance, so I can't get that information. But if I was a betting man, which I usually am on Tuesdays, I would say that Riet might be involved in this. I can't confirm it. I don't know. But if I had to speculate, I would say that. It does feel like Riet. Very, very well done. I do have a couple things, though, that I'm going to complain about towards the end, even though I normally don't do complaints in first impressions, but I want to show you guys something. So, the ergos melt in your hand. It is super, super comfortable. I do feel this a little bit, but not bad at all. It doesn't hinder me at all. It's definitely a very comfortable knife that I can get maximum leverage into. And they were looking for a robust tank-like knife, and it is. It is very solid. The titanium frame lock on it is super, super solid. Now, this does come in other options as well, like a full titanium version. This one being the micarta version. The micarta is really, really nice. Very, very well done. Like I said, the lockup is rock solid, no play, any direction. Now, the action is really good, but we're going to get into something here in a second. But the detent, super solid, very smooth drop. It is a false shutting action, really cool sound. The clip is titanium milled. I haven't tried it yet, and I don't know why they did the backspacer a different color, but it doesn't bother me really. It does have a steel lock bar insert, so it's not titanium on steel. It is steel on steel lockup, and then it has an over travel stop, so you're not going to unspring the lock over time unlocking it. Now, the choil, it's not a forward choil or not a finger choil. It is just a sharpening choil, and they do got the plunge grind a little close to the edge. I would like to see that backed up a little bit. Now, I do understand why, because of what they were kind of going for with this. And, doing a repeat cut on anything, you don't want anything getting caught in the choil. You do kind of want to protect that area from snagging on things, so I kind of understand it, but I still think they could have pulled the plunge grind back just a little bit and gave you a little bit more to sharpen off. Now, there's still a little bit there, and you'll still get a couple good sharpenings in before you'll hit the plunge grind. And if you lay back the angle, you'll get at least one good, maybe two good sharpenings in it if you do decide to change the angle. T8 hardware all the way around. Love to see that, even on the steel lock bar insert. The satin finish is a two-tone. We have a satin spine and then a stone-washed flat grind. It It is a nice broad flat grind, robust blade, nice and thick spine. It's not going to be something you're really going to have to worry about breaking or, the tip chipping or anything like that. But because it's so broad, it does get down to a relatively decent edge. Still somewhat thick, but not like crazy. And, because it's so broad and the leverage is so good, it seems like you're going to get some good cutting performance out of it, at least very comfortably. Access to the lock bar, they did chamfer the edge right here on both sides, so you can easily unlock it. Now, they probably didn't leave a cutout here because they don't want you to be able to unlock it when twisting or anything like that, especially being somewhat of a fighting knife. You don't want to twist and unlock it, which in this case you're not going to because there is no cutout on this side, but it's still relatively easy to disengage, so no complaints here, and I'm a nitpicker when it comes to lock bar access, so it's not bad. Still very easy to disengage. Now, and it's very smooth on the drop, perfectly centered. Now, let's talk about one of the complaints I do have, or one thing I want to talk about, which is this flipper tab. It has somewhat of a hinder style flipper tab where hinder poked up the end of it. Now, if you look, the flipper tab is not taller than the center of the pivot. And in order to get it closer to the center of the pivot, they kind of poked this end up a little bit. Now, it's not as bad as hinder, but that's what I think of when I deploy it is hinder because of that pokiness at the end of it. Rather than putting jimping there or anything else, it's slick, but it's pokey. Now, hinders is just kind of pokey. Now, like I said, this one's not as bad as hinder, but it's what it reminds me of. And, because of the position and the blade shape and, the way they designed it, the flipper tab lands right there, which winds up putting it into a position to where you don't get a lot of leverage on it without putting a nice strong detent. So because of the strong detent, makes it to where this is even pokier than it probably would be if it didn't have a super strong detent. Now, another knife that this kind of reminds me of, because remember, this is a NESSIE / inspiration of a kukri into a folding knife. Well, so is this. This knife was inspired by the NESSIE, the kukri, and the shillin. It's basically a folding shillin. Now, I love this knife, and I love how useful it is, how great it is in use. The tip points right at everything you want to cut. This one, not quite as much, but still, it's closer. It's close to it. But this thing traps everything you need into the blade, which is really nice. Even in a reverse cut, it traps things. This is going to do somewhat of that. Not as well, but pretty similar. Now, look at what they did with the flipper tab on this one. You can see they're kind of positioned in the same way. They're very, very similar. But when you look at the flipper tab, they squared this one off and put it pokey. This one they rounded and they put jimping all the way around it. So it's super grippy without being too grippy. Like, it's not uncomfortable. Super comfortable. You can easily do comfortable push buttons or light switches. I think this would have been a better way to do it. Now, this is a nitpick, right? I'm just saying that this is the way I would prefer the flipper tab. Is it that big of a deal? No. But these two kind of feel a little similar to each other, while this one just feels like far, far more premium, right? And you can definitely feel that. It feels very, very premium. And I do like it. I like it quite a bit, to be honest. It's different. It's unique. And that is something that, I like in my collection. And I can tell this is going to be a great tool. This is something that will functionally work well for a lot of things. Now, there's going to be other knives that might work better in one task, but this is still a knife that will work pretty good with most tasks, at least somewhat good. Sometimes adding too big of a belly here can hinder you, especially with the tip and things like that. But in this case, the way they speared it out a little bit, it's not going to be bad. And this kind of rounds off back here, so you have a nice comfortable grip. Now, there's no jimping back here. So this is one little detail. Because of the flipper tab, because it not having jimping, because it's slippery and pokey and it has a strong detent, I have found myself sometimes, and this is not a big deal. This is literally the worst nitpick ever, but it happened a couple times, so I'm going to talk about it, where I went to flip it and it slipped like that. Now that I know that that happens, I get a good grip on it before I flip it. And it's not going to happen again, but it did happen to me a couple times where, there's just no traction back here. And this is a strong detent, and this kind of hooks, so it kind of pulls down when you pull the flipper tab down. A little bit of traction back here, wouldn't have been a bad thing. But like I said, it's not a big deal at all. Now, some of you guys do like to reverse flick a knife when it's closed, especially when you have this much knife sticking out. This is not going to be one of them because the detent is very strong. However, I can, if I give it a wrist snap, I can do it. But I don't think most people are going to be able to do it. It's not easy at all, so don't plan on that. If it had a hole, it might be easier, or it would be easy. It'd be great if it had a hole deployment, but this is a nice, strong detent, so. But yeah, this is just the first impressions, guys. There is a lot of milling in the inside. The weight, it is a robust knife, so it does have a decent amount of weight, but in my opinion, I like that. It's not too heavy at all. It feels like I'm holding a tool, and I like that. So, but there you guys go. Just a quick first impressions. I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.